Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this May 6th version of AM Live on EOA. Your connection to Eastern Oregon, we're glad that you are here with us today. Here in just a little bit, we are going to have Assistant Professor from Eastern Oregon University, Kenn Wheeler, will be here with us to talk about the upcoming production of Fiddler on the Roof.
Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah, how are you, man?
Good. Second Monday. Feels like it's second Monday, too.
Yeah, I think we're firmly into spring, maybe.
You said that, and now it's probably going to snow
Now it's going to
tomorrow.
jinx it, right? Yeah.
Everything's going to freeze for a
No,
week.
but it's so pretty out there right now.
Yeah, it was cold the other day. What
Yeah.
was that, Saturday? Saturday was crappy. Was it Saturday?
Yeah.
You know, all
But
the
I don't
days,
think it got, remember we thought it was going to get down in freezing or near freezing?
and it didn't.
No, but it still was. And even this morning, when I got out and headed this way, it was, it was sweater weather.
Is it?
Yeah,
It's not. It's definitely suntan time
Yeah.
weather. I mean, I already got a farmer's tan just
Yeah.
from being out at softball and baseball.
Yeah.
It's nice.
well, good. Well, hey, want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit and LeGrand. Join them for their Star Wars Unlimited Jump to Lightspeed Store Showdown. Saturday, May 17th at 6 p.m. Play Swiss. Best of 3 rounds of Premier Constructed. Players will receive 2 packs and a boost. Hunt by Instinct promo for joining the event. Hobby Habit, 411 Fur and LeGrand, just for the fun of it. Bunch of games since the last time I saw you guys, but let's start here with Paige Allen. Congratulations to Paige Allen. She's the newest member of the EOU women's wrestling team. Paige signed her letter of intent last night at 6 o'clock in the high school gym. I had a feeling she was going to wrestle at EOU all along. She waited until senior day. She announced it at senior day for softball. But I kind of had a feeling all along that the EOU women's wrestling team and Coach Mark Abala was going to figure out a way to get Paige to stay here and wrestle for the Mounties. And I love it. I mean, another great local athlete staying home. LHS baseball, the boys went to Baker on Friday. I went over there. It was beautiful on Friday. And they split with the Bulldogs 6-4, and then they lost the second one 14-5. LeGrand and Baker are tied for second in the GOL at 4 wins and 4 losses apiece. The Tigers have a home game that's been changed to 3 p.m. today versus Burns. And then LeGrand plays Ontario in a doubleheader at home on Friday the 9th at 2 p.m. When I was over in Baker, I'm going to tell this story real fast. We went to a pizza place. I ain't going to say no names. But they charged us 9% takeout at a pizza place. It's ludicrous. It was crazy. And I'm only saying this for my buddies that I was with, that they'll get a kick out of it. 9% to take out a pizza? Come on, man. The LHS girls also went to Baker. The outcome there definitely did not end in a split as the Tigers routed Baker twice, 11-0 and 14-3, to remain perfect at 21-0. The number 1 team in the state. This team is good. They really are. They have a chance at a state championship. The girls go to Ontario tomorrow for a 1 p.m. doubleheader with the small T Tigers. That's what I'm going to start calling them. We're the big T Tigers. They're the small T Tigers. This team is looking to cap off a perfect season, like I said, and they have 5 games left, 2 at Ontario, Pendleton here twice, and a weird non-conference game at the end of the year before playoffs versus Weston McEwen. I don't know why. I don't like that game at all because generally you'd rest your starters, you'd bring up some JV kids, and you'd give them, a chance to play. But you have a perfect season on the line, so you don't do it. So now you play your starters, and it means absolutely nothing. You take a chance at somebody getting hurt. You waste innings for your pitchers. I don't like that. I don't like a non-con game against a smaller division school at the end of the year. It doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. EOU Track and Field heads to Ashland this weekend for the CCC Championships. More about that on Thursday. And finally, my ladies, they pulled it off this weekend. They went into the CCC softball tournament as the number 3 seed. We all know they were way better than that, and they dominated. Yeah, I said dominated their way to the CCC tournament title. Parsons, for the Mounties, started 3 of the 4 wins, knocking off Carroll, number 2 in the country, OIT, and then UBC in the championship game. And then she came into relief in game 2 versus number 4 in the country, Southern, holding them scoreless for 3 innings, while the Mounties clawed back and won that game 5-4 in extra innings. Parsons was 1 hit away from a perfect game versus number 2 OIT, and threw 22 innings in the 4 games, only giving up 10 hits and not a single run. If they gave an MVP for this tournament, which they don't, it was hands down Kylie Parsons. There's no question, as she turned in possibly the most dominant pitching performance in CCC tournament history. She was lights out. The ladies find out tomorrow where they go and who they play in the first round. There's a little bit of buzz saying that we might be a 1 seed. I don't think so. I really don't. We're 14th. We should be ranked way higher. We don't get respected on the national level the way we should. I don't think that Southern will get a 1 seed. They are hosting. And OIT might not get a 1 seed either now after losing to UBC and us back-to-back and, not even making the championship game at home in the CCC tournament. But I don't, and I hate to be a negative Nancy, I don't think we're going to get a 1 seed. I think we'll be a number 2 seed. I hope that the rankings committee proves me wrong, though, and we are a 1 seed. It would be absolutely awesome and deserved. This team is one of a kind. I interviewed head coach Nicole Christian last week, and I asked her, is this the best team you've ever had? And she came straight out and said, yeah, and I agree with her. That's all I got for you today. Great weekend, ladies. Super proud of you. AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it.
All right. Hey, thanks, man.
You can't tell that I'm passionate about softball or anything.
No, it's yeah.
I get so excited.
You're totally shy about that.
I love that sport, and I love that team. Part of it's just my connection with Nicole too.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's just when there's a team that has great chemistry and great camaraderie, and they're just great ladies.
Yeah.
It makes it easy for me
Yeah.
to be a fan. You know what I mean? It
Right.
really does.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, man. All right. Well, hey, let's take a look outside. And man, it's cool and crisp, but just super pretty. Loving that. And let's take a look at that weather graphic, Benny. So 71 today.
Be nice.
Yeah.
Got baseball today.
Yeah. And
80 tomorrow. Look
80
at the whole
72.
week.
Yeah, the whole week is that way. And just hardly any rain, which is awesome.
That's the best. Even though we need a little bit of rain,
Yeah.
I think.
It has been windy. I've got a drone flight that I'm trying to get out of the way, and it's
5.9 is not too windy.
well, right. But you know what's bizarre is that it'll seem the location where I'm shooting is that big construction site out in the industrial park.
Yeah.
And man, the wind just howls out there. So,
Like it does up at EOU.
yeah.
EOU's horrible. Out there on the football field.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You
Bud-
can take that graphic off.
Bud
then.
called me a negative Nancy.
Who did?
Bud. He's messing around. He's talking about me.
I know.
I'm not thinking that we're going to be a number 1 seed.
Well, what's funny is that and I understand you comment a lotot about the scheduling.
Don't get me started, BC.
Don't even get you started,
No,
yeah.
and the rankings, man.
Right.
Jiminy
Well, the
Christmas.
rankings is like, I totally get that. But
Oh.
the scheduling, I'm sure, is an absolute nightmare.
Okay, but scheduling a team that's a division below you
Right.
that's not in your conference at the end of the year is just ludicrous in my eyes.
Well, right. But what if you're just trying to fill a slot? I don't know.
You fill that slot earlier in the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would be like in baseball. The
yeah.
Padres make the playoffs.
Right.
And then they got to go play a AAA team.
Right. No, I'm not.
Like the day before the playoffs. It doesn't
Right.
make any sense at
Right.
all.
Yeah. But I'm sure I guess I'm wondering if, if they're like, okay, man, we need to have a game this day. Who are we going to get in this slot? And so then they're
Yeah,
trying to. I don't know how that works.
Neither do I, but I
Yeah.
don't think there's a minimum amount of games you have to play in the season. The only games that really matter are those GOL games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think you can play. I think it's just dates that you can play between. You know,
Yeah.
you can start playing here, you can end playing here.
Yeah.
We want you to play 10 non-con games and then your conference games or whatever it is.
Right.
But I don't think they say you have to play 24 games or you have to play however many.
Yeah.
I think it'll end up being 26 or 27 for LeGrand.
Yeah. Well, you know way more about that than I do.
Yeah, and I try not to know much about that. 'Cause it'll just get me even more excited.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, hey, we're glad that you guys are here with us today. Let me mention real quick that all of our content is available on eoa.network. If you type that into a URL, it will take you to a link tree where you can see where all of our stuff is available on Facebook and YouTube and Roku and our website and so on and so forth. So if you're looking for our content, that's where you find it. So here in just a minute, we are going to have Assistant Professor Kenn Wheeler is going to be here with us from Eastern Oregon University, and he's going to talk to us about the new production that's coming up. They're in the middle of rehearsing for at EOU. Fiddler on the Roof. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Mr. Kenn Wheeler,
We're back.
how are you, man?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
A little tired.
Glad you're here. You are like in the middle of it.
We are
in the midst.
We are in the middle of it.
How
right
many
in the
how many
middle.
weeks till opening?
We open 1 week from tomorrow.
So it's days. How
Yes.
many days?
Yes.
Okay.
We have like 10 rehearsals left is all.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you open on a Wednesday?
Yeah, we open on a Wednesday. Usually when we use our big theater, we only play for 1 weekend. And I like our students to have as many performances as possible. So we open on a Wednesday and we run Thursday, Friday, and then we have 2 performances on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
And then that's it.
So a matinee on Saturday and a night.
Yep, 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, and it's a lot of, it's a lot of work
Yes,
for 5 shows.
yes. It really is. We have a cast of 50.
That's crazy.
Is the first super big show that we've done since COVID.
Yeah.
Just haven't been able to do a show that big, and so I decided that this was the show we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Fiddler on the Roof is always a big draw for the audience, and it's always a big draw for the actors.
Yeah. Well, and you and I were in My Fair Lady
Right.
9 years ago now. Can you
Wow.
believe it? Yeah.
Jeez.
And in that I was, that was 4 weekends and 3 shows a weekend. And so, but you can't tie up the EOU theater that long, I would
Right.
imagine. Is that
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I really like that. I didn't realize quite how much of a commitment that was until, until we got to like the second or third weekend. It's like,
Well, but it's good. The nice thing about what Elgin Opera House does is, if you want to become a professional actor, that's far more common a run than just doing 4 shows and out.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, most professional theaters, I mean Broadway theaters, you have shows running for 20 years. And so there will be people that will be doing, when Phantom of the Opera when they made the big deal about Phantom of the Opera being the longest running show on Broadway, there was one actress who had been in it from the very beginning. I mean, a successful show on Broadway is great job security.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
No.
So I like the fact that they run more weekends, because it gives students a better idea of what professional theater's like.
Yeah, and I loved it. I mean, I barely call myself an actor, but I just loved it because, yeah, I mean, you don't really, I mean, there's all of this rush clear up to the very first show.
Yep.
And so, you know, by the second weekend, or the end of the second weekend, it's like, okay, I'm starting to feel comfortable. Yeah, I can start. Yeah, rather than trying to figure out what my next line was, or concentrating on that, or all of the stuff that you have to remember. I was relaxing, and I was starting to enjoy it. And
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's always fun when your commitment is just like 3 hours a night,
Right.
3 nights a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas during the rehearsals, you're there 6 nights a week for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Once the show opens.
So are you doing full run throughs yet?
No. Right now we're doing an act.
Okay.
Well, we didn't even do an act because Fiddler is kind of weird. The first act is 67 pages. And the second act is 33 pages.
Yeah.
It's a lot shorter. And so we went up right before the wedding last night, and then we'll finish the other half tonight.
Yeah. So
and then we'll start run through.
Yeah, because what people, I don't know, give people an understanding of how you rehearse different sections, and when you finally get to, you know, because most people would not understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
The very first part of the rehearsal process is what we call blocking. That's where the director gives the movement to the actors. If it's a musical, they also have dance rehearsals and singing rehearsals. So all those different things have to be scheduled during the week. And then we get to a certain point where the blocking is done, and then it becomes memorization rehearsals, where people have to be memorized. And that's a struggle, because some people memorize easier than others. And then after that, it's what we call working rehearsals, where you go through and you stop and you change things and you add things, and you work through pages, like 10 pages a night or 20 pages a night. And then you get to a point where you're just polishing, is what we call it, where, you know, you try to let the actors go through the whole act, so they get a sense of the flow of the show.
Right.
Whereas up to that point, you've just been doing pages. And then you do the first act, and then the second act, and then you eventually get to where you run through the whole show.
Yeah.
And so we'll be doing that starting tomorrow night.
So, yeah, there's very common, so talk about notes. What is a note? Yeah.
Well, like I said, during the earlier rehearsals, you stop the rehearsal and you say to an actor, okay, I want you to try this. I want you to do this.
Right.
And so it's kind of a stop and go process.
Right.
When you get to the point where you're able to just run through it, then the director takes notes, and he gives notes to each of the actors.
And a note is what?
It's a suggestion, what they need to do. For example, I'm giving a lot of notes to my students about being louder, because I've got a relatively inexperienced cast. They're doing a great job, but they haven't done a lot of shows.
And that's a tough haul. You got yeah.
And so they have to, you know, have to be loud enough, and they have to speak clearly enough that the actors or that the audience can understand what they're saying. And so a lot of my notes are louder, slower, slow down. And then those are the kinds of things that you do as you start getting into the polishing rehearsals.
But notes are really a list of things that you're given after the rehearsal.
Usually after the rehearsal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I have a nice thing in that I'm teaching an acting class, and all of the leads are in the acting class. So I'm going to give their notes to them today when we go into acting class.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that is, I mean, those are things. I mean, a couple of things. When I did high school theater, it was a big hall. It was probably the size of the high school auditorium here, and only this was before you had wireless microphones on everyone
Wow.
and so on and so
Yeah.
forth, and the director would sit at the very back and he would holler, "I can't hear you."
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually get a little bell, the
Yeah.
bellhop bell,
All right.
and I'll bang the bell
Oh,
if
that's
I
a
can't
great
hear
idea.
it.
Yeah, so
because,
you're not interrupting stuff, but the people are just like,
They understand that
Yeah.
they need to be louder.
yeah.
Yep.
No, and that's just a hard thing. Yeah.
Well, and we have two theaters. We have our small theater, and volume of actors is rarely a problem in there.
Right. You
because
can
it's
talk
so
at a
small.
conversational level.
Right,
almost,
but in
right?
the big theater, it seats 440 people.
Right.
And so, you're talking 60 feet to the back of the theater, and so, yeah, that's one of the big things is making sure you can be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then, what other term? What's a beat?
a beat.
Yeah.
A beat is just a small portion of the scene. When you look at a play, you break it down into scenes. And then you break it down into beats. And to get technical, it's talking about what the actors or the characters are what's their goal.
Right.
And so you break it down into beats. This is where your goal changes. This is where you try something new. This is where you achieve or don't achieve your goal. And so a beat is a small piece of a scene.
Okay.
So yeah.
Kind of like a scene is a small piece of an act.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well, so
Yeah.
and that's a different. So I'm thinking about the beat in like
Oh, taking a beat.
taking a beat. Yeah.
That's when
Describe that.
That's when
what
you
that is.
pause.
Yeah.
You have to, acting is all about, it's not just about delivering lines. It's about taking a pause
Right.
for effect to
Right.
let what you just said sink into the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you take beats all the time. I'm telling actors, take a beat there. Don't go right into your next line.
Right.
Let there be a pause so the audience can hear and make sure they understand what you just said.
Well, and oftentimes those are the last things to come in because you're working at memory, and I'm telling you, it was my brain when we were doing My Fair Lady and we're doing dancing and singing and blocking and memorization all at the same time.
Right.
And I remember at the time telling Michael, "Okay, Michael, which one of these things do you want me to do simultaneously right now?"
Exactly.
Because it is just overwhelming.
Right.
You're not off the book,
Right.
depending on how much stuff you have, and you have all these notes. Yeah, I'm supposed to be at this point. I'm looking at this person. I just came down the stairs, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, it's a very intricate process.
Yeah.
When you see actors moving on stage, very rarely is it spontaneous.
Right.
It's all been rehearsed, and
Right.
and we've made choices to have the greatest effect on the audience.
Right.
And there are a lot of moments in Fiddler on the Roof where we point up things because we want the audience to have a certain reaction. There's a really sad scene in the second act where Tevi is singing about all his daughters. He has one daughter that marries someone that the matchmaker didn't pick for them. So that's kind of the first thing he has to come to grips with. And then the second daughter marries someone that he's a revolutionary, in Russia. This was the turn of the century Russia. And so he's a Jewish revolutionary, and he gets sent to a prison, and she goes to be with him. And he has to deal with that. And then his third daughter ends up falling in love with a non-Jewish person, which at the time you just didn't do.
No. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so that's the hardest thing for him to deal with.
Right.
and he just barely. At the end of the play, you get the feeling that he's eventually going to come to grips with it, but he still hasn't completely. He basically shuns his daughter because she marries outside of the faith. And it's all about, I mean, the opening number is called Tradition, and that's basically the whole show. It's the character of Tevye the milkman dealing with the changing traditions.
Right.
And we do that today. I mean, you know, as
Constantly.
a parent, you look back on what you did. We were just talking about it before the show started. You know, as a child, the way you reacted to things, kids react totally differently now. Cell phones is one of the big things, you know. I remember when we still used the rotary phone.
Yeah.
You know.
Party line.
Yeah, a party line, absolutely.
It's communication is the biggest. You know what I
really
mean?
is.
Like just the way people communicate, you know, generationally is crazy.
It really is.
So crazy.
Yeah. Growing up, we never had anything like LOL or, you know, that kind of thing.
No, we said yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
exactly.
these kids nowadays, don't,
Yep.
you know.
And that's really what Fiddler on the Roof is about. It's about the fact that Tevye, the lead character, has to deal with each daughter getting a little less traditional, and he has to deal with that idea. And so it's something that we can really relate to. Audiences can relate to it really well.
For real.
Yeah, something that kind of nuancy that I hadn't picked up in Fiddler on the Roof in the past is the setting.
Right.
That it's in a town in Russia. And
Well, it's actually, I mean,
I'm saying, yeah, go ahead, please.
it's
go ahead.
actually
Yeah.
in Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay.
I mean, at
which
the
was
time,
a part of the Russia.
It was
Okay.
part of Russia. But yeah, the Anatevka is it's an imaginary town.
Right.
But it's set close to Kyiv.
Right.
And so it's set actually in Ukraine.
Right.
But it's a settlement of Jews.
Right, and the reason that's important is because those settlements can be, and you know that with the very first thing when the I don't know, who's the Russian,
The constable and the soldiers.
yeah,
come
the
marching
constable
through.
who is friendly with the local settlement, you know,
Uh-huh.
you kind of get a whiff of that other settlements have been disturbed,
Yes.
and have been required to move, or
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
and so the thing that is subtle that I didn't get is that their entire town and existence is not in their control.
Right.
I mean, they're
Exactly.
essentially camping on the edge. They're camping on the edge of town, and that wherever they are, and that local government is allowing them to be
Right.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and throughout the play, they're having to deal with that.
Right. Yeah.
Not only does Tevye have to deal with his daughters, but he
Right.
also has to deal, along with the rest of the town, with this threat
Right.
of violence
Right.
against them merely because they're Jewish.
Right.
And eventually the entire town is disbanded, and they
Yeah.
all have to leave and go different places.
Yeah.
Now, that type of living situation outside of the United States was commonplace.
Yeah.
For, like probably through the 40s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was very relatable for a lot of.
Well, and what's really interesting about Fiddler and myself, more my wife than myself, but my wife has ancestors who did that exact thing. Her great grandma Minnie actually came over from Russia in 1904 because she had to leave the country.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's that tie-in for us that's really personal.
So as those families are disbanding, as that town is disbanding, that settlement, some of them are coming to the United States. Yeah, and which
Yeah.
is which then kind of, I don't know, it just gave a very interesting historic, even though it's all fictional.
It's very
you
historically
kind of
accurate.
there are these elements of real life that
Yep.
that are in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes it easier to get into. You
Yes.
know, what like especially I don't know about everybody, but for me, if it's actually, you know, if it's fiction, you know, fake.
Sure. Yeah.
Is if there's some sort of, you know, historical relativity, even though I'm not a big history fan, I want it to have something that's real.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because I'm not a big fan of fiction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the other really interesting thing is that Tevye is, I mean, and he makes this point throughout the show. He has 5 daughters. He has no sons. He has 5 daughters. And at this time in Russia, you were expected to have a dowry for each of your daughters. And he's a poor milkman. And so he really doesn't have a dowry for
Right.
any of his daughters.
Right.
But and what's fun is that I have 3 daughters, you
Right.
know, and so it's even closer to what their story was for
Yeah.
us. So we really have a tie-in with the show.
I like it.
So Tevye is not only dealing with his daughters being dispersed in a manner that is really out of his control.
Right,
It's not what he would prefer.
right,
He doesn't have the dowry in order to help them be matched up appropriately.
right.
But his entire life, I mean, the settlement, nobody is in control of anything.
No.
Yeah, you
No.
know.
Well, and early on in the play, they talk about other towns that
Right.
that have been disbanded, and so
Right.
there's that fear hanging over them the whole time.
Right, right.
And eventually, that's what happens.
Well, and the constable, who is friendly
Right.
with them, he knows them, he's been with them, then he kind of has to be the bad dude.
Yep.
He has to do
Yeah.
his job and do what he's being told to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So, yeah, it's a really the type of show that's why it's so popular.
Right, yeah.
Is because even though it's set 120 years ago,
Yeah.
you can relate to the struggles that they're going through.
So is there anything, I mean, you've done this show a bunch of times.
I think this is my 7th time
Okay.
doing the show.
So are there some things that are different this time that are kind of emerging for you?
Well, the nice thing is that whenever you work with different actors,
Yeah.
it's going to change the dynamic of the show.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, there are a lot of similarities. I went back and the first time I directed it here was in 2004. And so I went back and got my director's book and went through it and looked at it and used some ideas from there. The scenery is basically the same, you know, because it calls for very specific things. And so a lot of it's similar. But again, when you're working with different actors, they always bring something new to it. So yeah, so it's the same, but it's always different.
Do you have a director's book for every show?
Yeah, yeah,
Next time you come, will you bring one
sure.
so I
Yeah.
can look at it?
Yeah, it ends up being pretty much a full binder because it has all
Yeah.
of the information. It has the script, it has the music, has the cast list, it has what
Yeah.
what we call a contact sheet, which is everybody's email address and telephone number, and then it's got all of the scenic drawings,
Oh, yeah. I
all
want
the
to see that.
costume. Yeah, so it's got everything in it.
Pick your favorite show ever and bring that book with you next time.
I will
and
do
we'll,
that.
I mean, we're not going to show people's phone numbers and stuff, but
Right,
as long
yeah.
as you're okay with it, we'll like
Yeah,
bring it up here and talk about it and
that would be great.
check it out.
Yeah,
And, yeah,
sure.
I think that would be awesome.
Yep.
So talk for a minute about how the different audience members. Some of the audience members will have seen this show 4 or 5 different times.
Yep.
And they show and in different places.
Right.
Yeah. And so then they show up, they know the story, and they're more curious about this interpretation of that show.
Right.
And then there are other members that like,
First
Yeah.
show they've ever seen.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're drawn to it or they come to it because it is a show that everybody knows. I mean, I don't know if there's very many people who don't at least know the name Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're not a theater person, you still know it. And so,
and explain why is it called, explain the metaphor of Fiddler on the Roof and what
well,
that means. Yeah.
the metaphor is that the fiddler sits precariously perched on the roof. And any time if he shifts incorrectly, he could fall off the roof.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of the way the village is. The village is in a precarious situation, and Tevye is in a precarious situation because he sees his daughters having these modern thoughts, And so he thinks that at any time, this idea of the traditions of the country, of the religion, the traditions of the town, they can lose it.
Yeah.
It can be taken care of. And just the very idea of we all get to a point where we're like, that younger generation, I can't believe what they think or how they react.
Yeah.
And then, 20 years later, we're in that older generation
Exactly.
looking
Yep.
at the younger generation and wondering why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what this is about.
Yeah.
The town has a lot of traditions. They talk about traditions for what they wear, for what they eat, for how they work. They have rituals that they do every week. We have a song called Sabbath Prayer, because for the Jewish people, they start their Sabbath in a very specific way, and they still do. I mean, Jewish people still start the Sabbath. My wife and I worked at a summer camp that was predominantly Jewish kids, and they would have the Shabbat services every Saturday night. They would have prayer, and they would have challah bread, and they would light candles, and still very traditional. And some of the kids wanted to go to it. Some of the kids saw it as something they had to do. And then some of the kids were there, but you could tell they really didn't want to be there.
Right.
And that ritual still happens, even like just the way it happened 120 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting story.
Wow. Has there been curves for you? Like, oh, this has been a little more complicated than...
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but my wife's father passed away in January. And so we had to go down to California for 3.5 weeks to take care of his estate. And then we went back down for spring break. So we were down there for spring break. We get back, and I'd cast the show before during winter quarter. And so we get back on a Sunday, and I get a phone call that my dad's in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad ended up passing away on April Fool's Day.
Oh, wow.
And so again, I was gone for 2 weeks. And so the show essentially is 2 weeks behind. Wow. And so we're pushing to get it ready. I mean, not to say that the people who were here took up the slack, but without a director,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do.
Right.
And so we've had to deal with that as well. So it's been kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's take, Bennett, I think you have a little clip. Let's take a look at this clip that he pulled off of Instagram, and this is one of the recent rehearsals.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're pushing somebody around on a ladder. Talk for a minute about what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, okay, so Tevye has, the richest man in town, the butcher, has said that he wants to marry Tevye's oldest daughter. And he's not going to require a dowry. He's not going to require anything. It's just a great opportunity for the family. Unfortunately, she's fallen in love with someone else. And he confronts them, and he eventually says, okay, fine, I'll let you marry the tailor, Mottel the tailor. And then he realizes that he has to come up with something to tell his wife, because she's expecting him Zeidel to marry the butcher.
Because
So
their
he
whole
comes up-
family is going to be better off with him marrying.
her marrying the butcher.
Right.
And so he comes up with this idea he has a dream.
Yeah.
And where the butcher's first wife, Frumasera, comes to him in a dream and says, don't you dare let Zeidel marry my husband. She says, if you do, I'm going to come to you at night and I'm going to choke you to death. And so she's this ghost, and she's like 8 feet tall or 9 feet tall. And so we have the actress up on a ladder that we've put on casters, on wheels. And so there's someone inside the ladder pushing her around the stage during the whole number. So, they do it a lot of different ways. On Broadway, they flew Frumasera. She actually was in a harness.
Yeah.
And they actually would take her up and have her fly around. Unfortunately, we don't have that technology. So we came up with the next best thing is she's standing on a ladder, and she's going to have on a dress that goes all the way down and covers the ladder, and then there's somebody in the ladder pushing it around.
Is she strapped onto the ladder?
No, she's just standing there.
Oh my goodness! I'm so afraid of heights. I won't get on. Like
Yeah.
that would not. Like
Yeah.
you ain't catching me up on that.
Yeah,
I'm not
and so-
from Sarah.
No,
whatever.
no.
way.
But yeah, and so there's this whole number, about the dream is what it's called, and so he tells the dream, and then Golda says, "Well, I'm glad you had that dream because now we know that Zeidel can't marry the butcher. She has to marry someone else."
Yeah.
And so it's then when he has to deal with it with his other daughters, he can't do another dream. He has to come up with something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, why don't you play that clip, Bennett?
Eventually, Tevye and Golda are in bed. And so when the dream happens, the bed actually breaks apart and spins off into different parts of the stage, and then comes back together for the very end.
Cool. And so that's going to happen on stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to build the bed. This show requires a lot of unique things being built. We had to build a cart, of course, the milk cart for Tevye, and then the bed, and just all the different things we have to have for the show.
It's got to be kind of hard to disassemble those things when you've done it a lot now, but when you build a set and
Yep.
you live with it and you work at it and you tweak it and you tune it, and then when you're done,
You tear it apart.
Well, it's like the people that make those absolutely gorgeous cakes.
Yes.
They're just gonna get eaten.
Right.
It's very similar.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because with a cake, it may be a most beautiful cake, but it ends up tasting like a
crap.
chocolate cake.
Yeah, or just
Yeah.
like plain. Most
Yeah.
of the time, it does.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things for me is at the end of a production when you've taken the entire set apart, to stand on the empty stage and just kind of think about what it was like, and then it's done, it's gone, and we start a new one.
Reset.
Yep,
It's
we
like hitting
reset.
reset on the Nintendo.
Yep.
yeah, and I'm so nostalgic. That would be a difficult. I mean, I suppose after you've done it a while, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
But
It is hard for people who haven't done it before.
yeah,
There are quite a few tears at the end of a run of a show
yeah,
because you brought 50 people together for 8-9 weeks,
right.
and people have made a lot of friendships and that kind of thing, and so once the show's over, these 50 people will never be together again in that same situation.
Yeah, I always kind of think of it, and there's a lot of life's journeys that are kind of like that. I always kind of like to think of it as like life is if you're on a train rolling down the tracks, and
Yep.
occasionally you are stuck in the train car with a bunch of people,
bunch
and
of
you're all
people.
progressing.
Yep.
And so it's like your life just happens to intersect
Yep.
at that minute, and then it's not. But
Yeah.
the memories that you build, whatever that might be,
Yeah.
you and I here, Terry
Sure.
was in this chair just a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, I mean those relationships, you kind of feel like you're war buddies a little bit. You
Yep.
kinda- yeah.
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 Yep. You've been in battle together.
Yeah.
I can relate it to sports in the
Right.
sense that,
Absolutely.
like,
Right.
all the what's the practices called?
Rehearsals.
All the rehearsals are
Yeah.
like the regular season,
Absolutely.
and then the World Series is the
culmination,
shows.
yeah.
And there's that climatic point, and then never will you find a team that has the exact same players the
Right.
next
Right.
year.
Yep.
Ever. I
Yep.
mean,
Right.
it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using a lot of the same student actors that I used last year when I did She Loves Me.
Yeah.
But it's a totally different situation.
Yeah. Yep.
People are cast in different roles, and so they take on different responsibilities, and so yeah, it's always changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Well, so give us the show information one
Okay.
more time, and Benny, if you can put. And I mean, do we have other photos? That you had. Kind of show us those.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, it's going to look so different
Yeah.
when they're in costume and the sceneries, everything. But this is the Sabbath prayer.
Yeah.
This is where the entire town begins their Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this absolutely beautiful song about beginning the Sabbath, and all the families come in and they're all holding candles, and it's a beautiful song. And the show opens a week from tomorrow, so it opens on May 14th.
Okay.
And it runs through Saturday, and every night at 7 o'clock. Saturday, we're also having a 2 o'clock matinee.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting because I didn't realize until about a week ago that it corresponds with EOU's Alumni Day or some
Blue and gold.
blue and gold, yeah. And so
That's
there's
the
going to be
17th.
there's
you're
going to
right.
be a lot of people on campus.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll want to take in a show.
Oh, yeah.
Tickets are $15 for general admission, $10 for seniors, and
Where can they go to get those?
they can go to the website, which is EOU /theater, and then you can just find the link to the box office. The box office is also open if you want to go and actually purchase your tickets, and the hours are also posted online. College students are free. We don't charge college students, but they do have to get tickets. You can't just show up and walk into the theater. You
Yeah.
have to get a ticket. But yeah, $10 for veterans or military, for seniors, and for regular students.
I'll put the link to the tickets in the
Excellent.
comments.
Yep.
Cool.
So yeah.
Alrighty. And you have that poster, Bennett? Can you throw that up there if you haven't yet? Okay. It's all right. It's all right.
But yeah,
So
they're
the
posted-
14th through the 17th, 7 p.m.,
With
2
the
p.m.
2
matinee
p.m.
on
matinee.
Saturday the 17th.
Yep.
You can get your tickets right there
Yep.
in the comments. And
Yeah.
you go support.
Bring the whole family. That's what's fun about the show is we have 5 complete families that are in the show.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so we have kids. I think the youngest is 4.5, and the oldest is, trying to think, probably 60. Yeah.
Wow.
So we've got a wide range of people in the show.
Cool.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, hey, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, and we appreciate you reaching out to us. And
Well, I appreciate you giving me this platform to talk about what I love.
good.
Yep.
Excellent,
It's
man.
always entertaining.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to get us out of here?
Yeah. On this day, May 6th, 1835, James Gordon Bennett Sr. publishes the first issue of the New York Herald. The price at the time, 1 penny. 1915, on this day, future Baseball Hall of Fame slugger Babe Ruth hits his first major league home run. He also pitched 12 innings in the Boston Red Sox 4-3 extra inning loss to the Yankees. It's funny because obviously everybody knows Babe Ruth as a Yankee, but he started with the Red Sox. 1937, German airship Hindenburg explodes in flames at Lakehurst, New Jersey, killing 35 of the 97 on board and 1 on the ground. 2002, on this day, entrepreneur Elon Musk founds SpaceX. 2013, on this day, Walmart becomes the largest company by revenue on the Fortune 500 list. 2023, the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla at Westminster Abbey in London, the first monarch crowned in the UK in 70 years. She lived that long. Man, that's crazy. She had a heck of a life. She saw a lot, that woman, Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She was around for a lot of things. On this day, the #1 movie in America in 2015, so 10 years ago, Avengers: Age of Ultron. And the quote of the day comes from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Success isn't always about greatness, it's about consistency. Consistent hard work leads to success. Greatness will come. One more time. Success isn't always about greatness, it's about consistency. Consistent hard work leads to success, and then greatness will come.
Boy, that is true.
Yeah, The Rock is the guy. he's amazing. Like the guy's career, just everything that he's done. I mean, he started out as a wrestling brat.
Yeah.
His whole family was wrestlers, and he's turned into this international just star. It's awesome.
Yeah. All righty. Hey, thank you, Ken.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. We'll see you soon.